Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing great today. So today's part takes us into a quieter moment, one that really shows what Wangji is feeling deep inside. So if you're new here, don't forget to check out the previous part of this story so you can enjoy it better. Alright, let's dive right in. It had been almost an hour and Wangji was still standing there. When he saw Songlang's arrival, he felt a flicker of relief. Perhaps the rest of Wing's friends would join them too. But no one else came. It seemed Songland was the only one attending. Apparently, he owned the company himself and was also part of this donation event. Just as Wangji sighed, someone approached him. A man in an elegant black suit, his posture composed, yet his aura carried something dark, almost predatory. There was a slight glint in his eyes, a kind of intrigue that made Wangji instinctively tense. He gave the man a brief, polite glance before his eyes subconsciously started searching for Wang, who had disappeared from where he'd been standing moments ago. Looking for someone? The man asked smoothly, his tone edged with amusement. Tell me, I might be able to help you find him. No, thank you. Wangji replied curtly, his tone cold and uninterested. He was about to take a step away when the man extended a hand, smiling with confidence. Emily Harmon, and I must say I'm surprised you managed to stay hidden from my eye this long. Man or woman, no beauty escapes my attention. You must be the son of some wealthy businessman, perhaps just returned from abroad after finishing your studies. Wangji didn't take the offered hand. His expression didn't change, but the chill in his silence was clear enough. You're a spoiled one, I see, Mr. Lee muttered under his breath, though loud enough for Wangji to hear. Wangji frowned slightly. Didn't this man have an ego problem like Wing? Why did he keep talking when Wangji had already made it clear he wasn't interested? Still, before he could move past, Mr. Lee stepped in front of him again with a smug smile. A little introduction won't hurt anyone, he said lightly. Before Wangji could respond, a familiar voice broke through. So you're here, Mr. Lee. Everyone over there is wondering where the star of the evening disappeared to. Madame Liu said teasingly as he approached, gesturing toward a group nearby. Mr. Lee chuckled. Nothing much, Madame Lee. I was merely intrigued by this young man who refuses to even tell me his name. He glanced between them, his curiosity sharp. By any chance, do you know him? Wangji caught the flash of disapproval in Madame Liu's eyes before she turned toward Mr. Lee with a forced smile. Yes, of course, she said tightly. Mr. Lee, meet my son-in-law, Mr. Lan Wangji. She hadn't wanted to make the introduction, but after seeing how Wangji had offended Mr. Lee, she couldn't risk it. Wangji felt a small sense of relief, even if Madame Liu was glaring daggers at him. At least her arrival pulled Mr. Lee's unwanted attention elsewhere. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. But as far as I know, Mr. Lee said, tilting his head, you only have a son. I didn't realize you had a daughter too. I don't. He's married to my son, Wing. The resentment in her tone was impossible to miss. Mr. Lee's brows shot up. Ah, I see. I wouldn't have taken Wing for someone who's into me. Or perhaps he's just good at hiding it. Then his gaze slid back to Wangji. Which means you're into men too. Perfect. He said with a hideous smile, licking his lips slightly. It's really nice to meet you, Wangji. Wangji stared at him, his discomfort barely masked. He didn't like this man at all, but refusing a handshake twice would only make things worse, so he reluctantly reached out. What he didn't accept was the strength of Mr. Lee's grip. Tight, almost punishing. It wasn't a handshake, it was a show of power. Wangji tried to pull his hand back discreetly, not wanting to draw attention, but the man didn't let go immediately. When Wangji finally managed to free himself, he wondered if he had imagined it. Perhaps Mr. Lee just had an unusually firm handshake. But then Mr. Lee leaned in slightly, whispering, Wangji, as he licked his lips. Such a nice name. Wangji froze, anger burning beneath his calm exterior. Madame Liu didn't notice a thing. Mr. Lee straightened up smoothly. Well then, Madame Liu, enjoy the evening. I should get back before they send out a search party for me. he said, smiling. I do hope we meet again, he added, his gaze lingering on Wangji before walking away. As soon as he was gone, Madame Liu turned sharply toward Wangji. You, don't you have any manners? Or are you completely oblivious to how people treat each other in our society? Do you have any idea how important he is? He's one of our biggest clients. If I hadn't come when I did, who knows what kind of embarrassment you would have caused. She sighed and muttered, now stop standing around like a fool. Come with me. Wangji followed quietly as she led him toward another part of the venue. He heard her mutter under her breath. God knows what Wing was thinking when he decided to bring you here. She didn't care that he heard, but Wangji didn't get offended. At least someone was telling him what to do. Standing there all alone, he had begun to feel strange, out of place and uneasy. For a fleeting moment, he wished someone familiar would stand beside him, just until this long night was finally over. Madame Liu brought him into another section of the hall, where the air felt just as heavy and the night, far from ending, had only begun. The diner hall is bathed in golden light, every table wrapped in ivory silk and scented with a lazy Susan. Polished until it mirrors the chandelier's glow. Around it sits guests dressed in shimmering elegance, their laughter soft but calculated, echoing like delicate porcelain chimes. Wangji noticed at one of the table being Xia Songlan, and some unfamiliar faces shared the space. The air between them feels formal, almost rehearsed, like a scene everyone else knows their lines for except Wangji. Wangji thought, oh, so here he is, Wing enjoying his night with his kind of people. His irritation grew as he watched Sia confidently claim the seat beside Wing, as if it were hers by right. She leaned close whenever she spoke, her laughter soft and perfectly timed to match Wing's quiet smile. Of course, Wing hadn't even once looked around to wonder where Wangji was. It was as if he had completely forgotten that Wangji existed at all. When they finally approached the table, all eyes turned toward them. Wing, who had been mid-conversation with someone seated to his left, paused when he noticed Wangji walking toward the table. He opened his mouth, perhaps to offer the seat beside him, but that place was already occupied by Sia. Two seats still remained empty. Someone politely stood up to help Madame Liu settle into her chair, pulling it out for her before taking his own seat again. But no one did the same for Wangji. After all, he was a man, and gesture like that didn't apply to him. So Wangji quietly took the last remaining seat. His movements calm, but his chest tight with the quiet sting of being out of the place. Wangji's expression remains composed, but inwardly the shaking presses down on him. The artificial light, the hum of overlapping conversation, the sound of cuddly touching fine porcelain, it all feels too much. He doesn't belong to this glittering world, but he doesn't shrink from it either. He sits upright, quiet, and self-contained, a man enduring rather than enjoying. When the food begins to rotate on the lazy Susan, dishes glide past, glad duck, seafood, dumpling, delicate rolls, each plate looking more like decoration than a meal. Not wanting to cause trouble or appear uncertain, Wangi takes a bit of everything during the first turn, unaware that the custom is to take only small portions as it passes each round. His plate fills quickly, too quickly. At first, no one noticed. The lazy Susan keeps moving, conversation continues, then Sia's eyes flick toward his plate, and her lips curl slightly. She leans forward, her voice sweet but loud enough for others nearby to hear. Oh, Wangji, she says with a small laugh. You shouldn't take everything at once. It's a little inappropriate, you know. You only take a little and wait for the next turn. The chatter around them softens just enough for the words to linger. A few heads turn. Madame Liu lifts her gaze, her expression polite but aged with amusement. Wangji paused mid-motion, his chopsticks still in hand. He glanced around the table, confusion flickering across his face, only to realize that every pair of eyes was already on him. Some looked amused, like Sia, barely holding back their laughter. Some stared with hope and curiosity, and a few with thinly veiled disgust, as if wondering what kind of creature Wangji was and how he ended up among them. For a heartbeat, his composure wavers, not from embarrassment but from the quiet sting of being exposed for something he didn't know. He sets the chopsticks down gently, his movements calm and deliberate. I see, he says softly, his tone steady. My apologies. Then, without looking at anyone, he excuses himself with quiet dignity and stands. Madame Liu's voice fills the silence. He leaves behind his smooth and faintly teasing. Such a healthy appetite, though, she remarks, smiling faintly. Quite rare these days. The table fills again with murmurs and soft laughter. Wing didn't say a word. He was half turned toward another guest, his attention elsewhere, when Songlan subtly gestured for him to go after Wangji. Songlan really felt bad for him. Anyone would after what just happened. He cursed Sia inwardly, wondering when she'd finally learn when to speak and when to keep quiet. Meanwhile, Wangji thankfully knew at least one thing: where to find a moment of peace in places like this. He went straight to the boss room. He didn't know whether Sia's word had been deliberate or thoughtless, but either way, he'd had enough. Why was he enduring all of this? For what reason? It was time to end this. So he quietly booked a cab for himself and waited there, hidden away, hoping to avoid meeting anyone else and humiliating himself further. But the cab was taking too long to arrive, and he couldn't stay there forever. With his steadying breath, he finally decided to leave, only to collide with someone at the doorway. For a second, the thought crossed his mind that maybe, just maybe, it was Being who had followed him. But the moment he looked up, that foolish hope died. It was Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee reached out to steady him, but the instant Wangji realized who it was, he took several quick steps back, putting as much distance as he could between them. He hoped the man would just let him pass this time without another word, but of course he didn't. As Wangji tried to walk past, Mr. Lee caught his arm in a firm grip and said in the same smug tone, "Why do you always try to run when I'm around? Do you have any idea how many people would die to have my attention?" "I'm not interested," Wangji managed to reply, suppressing his anger. "Let me go right now, or what?" Mr. Lai cut in with a sneer. "I know what your marriage is like. Not just me, everyone does. You'll never be able to charm Bing, not while that Sia girl has him wrapped around her finger." Wangji ignored him, focusing on freeing his arm from that iron grip. And although he knew Mr. Lee would carry some truth, it didn't matter to him. He'd have to lose his mind before he ever cared about charming Wing. Suddenly, Mr. Lee yanked him closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "I wonder how cold your nights must be. Let me warm them for you." That was the last straw. Wangji's patience snapped. With a sharp movement, he tore his arm free and slapped Mr. Lee so hard the man stumbled back 3 steps. At that exact moment, Songlan arrived, calling out sharply, "Mr. Lee!" He moved between them in an instant, his voice turning to ice. "Know that you've got what you deserve. You can leave." Mr. Lee glared at Wangji with dark fury, muttering, "You're going to regret this," before turning on his heel and walking away. When the silence settled, Songlan turned to Wangji. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "Could you drop me home?" Wangji said, still looking in the direction Mr. Lee had gone. Songlan nodded, even though Wangji didn't meet his eyes, and simply said, "Let's go." They left the venue together in heavy silence, and aware that someone else was already planning to take advantage of what had just happened. Later that night, when Bing arrived home, he found Wangji fast asleep on the couch. Though honestly, by now it looked less like a couch and more like Wangji's personal bed. For a moment, he just stood there watching him, peaceful, still, unbothered. A part of him wanted to let him sleep, not disturb that fragile peace he rarely saw on Wangji's face. But then another thought came. Wing thought he'd been nothing but kind to him these past few days, patience even, and this is what he got in return. Wangji never once stopped to think before doing something selfish, and this time Wing couldn't let it slide. "Wangji, wake up." No response. Wake up, Wangji. After hearing his name for the fifth, maybe sixth time, Wangji finally stirred. His lashes fluttered open and he blinked, confused. Because Wing was just standing right there looking furious. Not that anger was new, but this one felt different. He looked around, the room still dark, reached for his phone on the table, 1 a.m. Wing had just come home. Then why was he here instead of sleeping? What? Wangji asked softly, still half asleep, when Wing didn't say anything. I warned you, Wing began, voice tight with control. Not to do anything foolish, just to fuel your I do whatever I want lifestyle. Not to embarrass our name again. Wangji blinked slowly, processing the words. He thought back to that ridiculous gala. He had done a few questionable things, enough to count as embarrassing. So which one was this about? Probably dinner. He sighed. Look, what's done is done. I can't go back and fix anything. And anyway, I didn't even ask for that invitation, did I? The casual tone, the indifference, it was swing past patience. He grabbed Wangji by the arm and pulled him upright. The grip, the sudden firm pressure reminded Wangji of Mr. Lee. Almost the same touch, the same unease. Lost in that thought, he didn't respond when Wing spoke again. Yes, Wing said sharply. It was just stupid of me, thinking I could erase those rumors by taking you there, assuming you knew how to behave around classy people. I forgot I was giving you another chance to make things worse. Now Wangji was wide awake. How you behaved with Mr. Lee, huh? Wing continued, his tone growing sharper. He told us everything, how you misunderstood his boldness. But misunderstanding is one thing, slapping people is another. I know you don't like mingling with others, but that doesn't mean you forget your manners in public. A faint smile touched Wang's lips. Not soft, not kind, but bitter. So it was about Mr. Lee, but why did Wing's word sting more than what Mr. Lee had done himself? Wing noticed it, that quiet, mocking smile, and for once Wangji didn't fight back, didn't try to free himself. He just stood there, silent, eyes steady on him. Wing had wished so many times to see Wangji smile while looking at him. But not this one, not this smile. He shook Wangji slightly, voice breaking into a whisper. Come on, say something, deny it. Tell me my mom's lying. Thus she didn't see you offend Mr. Lee when he was only introducing himself. I'm sorry to break your bubble, but when someone approaches you at a social event, it's because they want to deal, not because they're swept away by your charm. He hadn't meant it, not like that. But Wangji's silence, that stillness, made him uneasy. So he said more than he should have, and he finally got a reaction, just not the one he accepted. Wangji grabbed him by the shirt, pulling him close until their breaths met. You know, Wangji said quietly, he did the same thing, and I hated it just as much as I'm hating it right now. Then he pushed him hard enough to make Wing stumble back a few steps and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed in the silence. Wing just stood there, staring at the faint imprint of fingers on his shirt. What Wangji said didn't make sense. But where could Wangji even go at this hour? He didn't have a car, didn't have anywhere to be. He should have just let him sleep. Beat it for morning. Wangji wasn't going to despair. Then why did he suddenly feel like he was the one left behind? Wing let out a shaky sigh, rubbing his face. He's the one angry now, he muttered. Really? Just because Wangji didn't like it didn't mean Mr. Lee and his mom were lying. 2 days passed in a blur. Wangji didn't know why, but something kept bugging him. He couldn't make peace with the way Wing's behavior unsettled him. What was he even accepting from Wing? The way he reacted, that was so him, sharp, dismissive, impossible to please. And yet Wangji needed that reminder. He needed to know where he stood in Wing's world. He told himself to stop thinking about it. Tomorrow was special, too special to let such thoughts cloud his mind. There was so much to do, so much to prepare. The next morning, Wangji woke up early in a surprisingly good mood. Humming softly, he began the final touches for the day's preparation. He didn't When Wing came down for breakfast, he frowned the moment he saw several covered dishes instead of his usual soup. His irritation flared. He called the maid sharply. Before she could arrive, Madame Liu entered, adjusting her silk shawl. "What's going on?" she asked while taking her seat. Her eyes swept across the table, then she snapped. "Take all this back and stop bringing random things to the table unless I say so." The maid hesitated, her hands resting nervously. She looked like she wanted to explain something. Wing sighed, his tone clipped. "Will you hurry up and bring my soup? I'm already running late." "Yes, sir, but I..." the maid stuttered. "Yuhan," Madame Liu interrupted impatiently. "Either say it or go. You know my day doesn't start without my salad. Clear this mess and bring our proper breakfast. We're not touching any of this." Before the maid could move, a calm voice spoke from the stairs. "You can have them. I cooked all of this, keeping your diet in mind. None of it will harm you." Both Madame Liu and Wing turned toward the sound. There was Wangji coming down the stairs, hair still slightly damp, face fresh, and glowing with quiet satisfaction. "You cooked these?" Madame Liu asked in disbelief. "I did," Wangji replied simply, a hint of pride in his tone. "I used to cook often at home, and today I wanted to. You can eat without worry. It's all light, healthy, and appetizing." He smiled faintly, stealing a glance at Wing. Then, as if remembering something, he started walking toward the kitchen, only to stop when Madame Leo's sharp voice cut through the air. "What are you waiting for? Go and bring our breakfast." "But, madam, this food? Throw it away." Her words were cold, final. "It doesn't even look appetizing," she added, wrinkling her nose. "I'm not taking the risk of tasting whatever that is." Wing watched silently as the maid obeyed, clearing away every dish. His gaze lingered for a moment, not at the food, but at the flicker of hurt that crossed Wangji's face. He turned when Madame Liu asked, "Do you want?" "No." He cut her off. "Just my soup." For the first time, Wangji truly felt hurt by Madame Liu's actions. He had been foolish to think they'd even try what he made, foolish to hope they'd trust him enough to taste a meal prepared by his hands. They didn't just reject it, they threw it away in front of him without hesitation. Well, that was fine. Today was an exception. After this, he would never step into their kitchen again. Let them enjoy their planned food. He wouldn't let them spoil his day. He walked away without a word. Moments later, at the eight, Madame Liu and Wing watched Wangji carry box after box from the kitchen, neatly packed, each one filled with food. The maid helped him load them into a small truck waiting outside. "If he wants to party, why waste our groceries?" Madame Liu muttered, a trace of irritation lacing her voice. Wing said nothing. He didn't care if Wangji was hurt. His own anger hadn't faded since the day he found his suit, the one he lent Wangji, thrown, crumpled, and damp in the bathroom sink. Wangji could have returned it neatly, but no, he had to prove a point as always. And since then, Wangji had ignored him completely, acting as though he was the one who'd done something wrong. "So go feed your dishes to your pride," Wing thought bitterly. When they finished breakfast, Madame Liu called Johann back. "It's your job to make sure he never does this again. I don't want him in my kitchen, understand?" "Yes, madam," Johann said quietly, nodding. "Wait," Madame Liu added. "Do you know what he's up to?" Johann hesitated, then nodded again. "Today is his mother's birthday. He said he wanted to cook all her favorite dishes himself." A flicker of surprise crossed Madame Leo's face. "Oh, right. It's been so long since." She stopped mid-sentence, rubbing her eyes as if brushing off an old memory. "Anyway, why go shopping? Don't tell me he bought new groceries when the pantry's full." "Yes, ma'am," Johann confirmed softly. "He planned to take the food to the orphanage to feed the kids there, so he wanted to use his own money." "Enough," Madame Liu interrupted quickly. "Stop singing his praises and go do your work." Avoiding Wing's gaze, she turned away and muttered under her breath, "Always trying to prove something, always." Alright guys, that's all for today's part. If you made it till here, don't forget to drop your thoughts. Whether you liked it or not, I'd love to know what you think. And stay tuned because in the next part, things are definitely going to change for both Wing and Wangji. Alright then, see you in the next part. Until then, keep smiling and stay tuned.